What is going on, everyone? In this one, Game Week preview, going to be answering a bunch of your questions heading into Game Week 25. Starting with lots of questions around Man United. I was asked multiple different questions in various different styles of Man United. So I've picked 4, which hopefully cover most scenarios, right? So we're going to jump straight into them. Then we'll look at Game Week 25 wildcards and stuff like that. So first question is, how many Man United players are needed? So this is often a question you get in double game weeks, right? How many players do I need? How many players from this team? For me, the simple answer is just 1 is enough, as long as it's David De Gea, Ronaldo or Fernandez, because I think you can make a case to captain any of them. And personally, I would captain all 3 of them ahead of other players this game week. I know a lot of people will want to go for Salah or something like that. It's absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. But in my opinion, double game week, you've got to captain a double game week player. And the 3 on screen are the 3 you should be looking at. So this person in particular has got David De Gea. Is that enough? It is. Ideally, you'd captain an attacker instead. If you can easily get to Fernandez, maybe Ronaldo. I'd be more inclined to bring in Fernandez if I own neither Fernandez or Ronaldo this week. But you could captain David De Gea if you needed to, right? So 1 is enough. If you can get more, great, but obviously you've got to think about Game Week 26 doubles, Game Week 27 blanks, Game Week 30 blanks, when you're going to wildcard, all that kind of stuff as well. So for me, yeah, simple answer is 1. Personally, I'd like at least 2. I'm probably going to have 3. That's just me. You don't have to do that, right? As a lot of people have pointed out, Man United's results recently have not been great. I actually think the performances have been okay in the last couple of games, albeit against easier teams. It just hasn't resulted in good wins. But Man United are looking all right. So I would captain 1. 1 is enough. Next question is about Ronaldo captain. If you own Ronaldo, would you still get Fernandez for captain in Game Week 25? Or would you go straight to Salah and just captain Ronaldo instead? So this is an interesting question, right? I'm kind of in pretty much the same dilemma, sort of. I won't go back into my team again because I spent long enough on it earlier. And I think the ultimate answer is you can happily captain Ronaldo this week, I think. I don't see him missing out the Southampton game, so then you're banking on him getting another start against Brighton, and I do think that's possible. I'd be very surprised if he gets benched twice out of 3 games, but on the other hand, because he has been benched against Burnley, we have seen him being dropped a few times so far this season, we can't be shocked if it happens in the double game week. So you are taking a little bit of a risk. If I had to put money on it, Fernandez will probably get more minutes than Ronaldo. That doesn't mean that Ronaldo won't get 2 starts, so he could get like 80 to 90 minutes and then maybe 70 to 80 minutes in the second game, possibly fully rested against, maybe not fully rested, but not starting against Leeds and then ready for the Champions League. But it could be that he misses the Brighton game, plays Leeds so that he's ready and kind of got a bit of match fitness before the Champions League. So it's impossible to answer. But if getting Salah in saves a hit down the line and you don't really want Fernandez, and I think you're okay to captain Ronaldo, okay? I think he'll start against Southampton and then you're just hoping that he starts against Brighton as well. Again, I would take that risk rather than captain a single game week player, but that is just me. I am very pro double game weeks. It's not even a Man United thing. I captain Josh King. I will definitely be captaining Weghorst in game week 27. It's just double game week thing. It's not a Man United thing. So yeah, I think if you've got Ronaldo and you're not really keen on going to Fernandez, then yeah, just captain Ronaldo. Would it make sense to go from Ronaldo to Fernandez if we were to captain him? I don't think that's worth a transfer unless that shift of funds from forward to midfield is something you were planning on anyway. So for me, for example, Ronaldo was always my placeholder to afford to get Salah back, but things changed, right? Man United got a double game week. Suddenly I didn't want to sell Ronaldo. Didn't work out well in the first one. Hopefully it works out better this time. So I've had to figure out a different way to get Salah. But ultimately, if the only reason is because you think Fernandez is a better captain, I don't think it's worth that transfer, right? Because if we remember what we've said the last few videos, transfers are always worth 4 points. So is it worth 4 points to switch from Ronaldo to Fernandez? I don't think so. Maybe if you were bringing in Fernandez for a different player and you were happier to captain him and you kept Ronaldo as well, that would probably be okay. But I don't see, especially when you've got Game Week 26 and stuff to plan for, I don't see much value in switching from Ronaldo to Bruno. If Ronaldo was such a rotation risk, we weren't even sure if he was going to start at all for the next couple, then maybe you could do that. But he definitely starts one, and there's every chance he might start the other one as well. So I wouldn't do that personally. And the last kind of question on Man United players, is it worth transferring Salah out for Fernandez just for the double game week? So I'm assuming this is a switch from Salah to Fernandez and then back to Salah again. So that's 2 transfers, that's 8 points. I'm not sure that's worth it unless you haven't got another Man United player you can captain. And when I say another one, I mean Ronaldo or David De Gea. You could arguably put the captain's armband on Dalot, but I do think that is a risk because I think when it comes to minutes, I don't know if he's any better or worse than Ronaldo, really. Like, he is first choice. But there is Wan-Bissaka as well that could play at some point. So, look, you could take a punt on Sancho or Rashford if you wanted to, if you own them, which is doubtful. So, yes, the short answer is for this one, if I had no other Man United players and I really wanted to captain a double game week player, I would consider doing this. But if you can find a different route to do it, that's probably better because you will want Salah back. Therefore, it's costing you 2 transfers. That's quite a lot. Just really quickly, because I didn't see too many questions on it, but I have kind of been asked this week, is punts on Rashford and Sancho or even Pogba as well. Personally, Pogba can get attacking returns. We saw him get a lot at the start of the season, but I think in that kind of midfield they're playing like a 4-3-3, which almost kind of works out like a 4-2-3-1 with Fernandez getting further forward. But I just don't think Pogba is going to be high enough up the pitch in either of these games, especially Southampton that are going to absolutely try and press Man United and play like they did against Spurs. I just don't see that for Pogba. Quality player, but I don't see a huge amount of returns. If you can stump up for Sancho or Rashford, they are starting more often than not right now. Elanga is still a problem. He could start one of these 2 games. So it is a punt. I wouldn't want these 2 instead of Ronaldo or instead of Fernandez. But as an addition, you could go for that as well. So ultimately, just to round up Man United, captain Ronaldo if you don't really want to get someone else and that's all you've got. Don't switch Ronaldo to Fernandez, in my opinion. And one Man United player is probably enough as long as it's a decent captain option. So a few people asked me for kind of wildcard updates, wildcard ideas for those that want to use it in Game Week 25. I'm not going to get into whether you should be using it or not. You have to look at your own team and kind of decide from there. There is a few changes that I would make, quite a few changes to be honest, from my own team. And it would also obviously take away any needs for hits this week or in Game Week 26 as well. And I could probably cover Game Week 27. So ultimately it would save me quite a few transfers. So it is tempting, but I just think we could get such valuable information after Game Week 30. And I feel like I can just manage this with a few hits. So I'm probably going to do that. And also, I don't like... Although I'd make a lot of changes, I don't know how many of those are kind of significant changes, and that kind of worries me a bit about wildcard. You almost want to be like 100% sure about the players you're getting rid of. And for me, for this team, for example, I'd be wildcarding out David De Gea, I'd be wildcarding out Trosso, I'm not so bothered about, to be honest. And I'd also be wildcarding out Ronaldo. It just doesn't feel right ahead of a double. So for my team, it's not worth it. For you, it might be. Like I said, I've not necessarily put a huge amount of thought into this because I'm not wildcarding, but this is something that I put together. So I probably would go, unless I had a lot of money, and I can afford it to be fair, but I'd probably go for Sanchez over David De Gea. David De Gea does have a good fixture in Game Week 27. I think it's Watford at home. But after that, you're going to mostly play Ramsdale anyway. So I think you just save the cash and go for Sanchez. Webster and Davies are in there as cheap options. Like, if you had more money, you could definitely upgrade White to Tierney, maybe Davies to Reguilon, for example, Webster to Cucurella. These are all moves that you could make. And I could possibly make one of them with a 0.6 million in the bank. But this is what I've gone with. I've also gone for Weghorst, Broja, and more pay up front. I got to be honest, I don't massively like it, but when I think about the transfer moves I'm making for my own team, Weghorst is definitely going to come in at some point. Broja is probably going to come in as well because the fixtures past 27 are good. And then you've got more pay with a double, who also lets you put more money elsewhere. So you get to have Salah and Fernandez, and obviously Fernandez is then your captain for Game Week 25. You could go for Kane up front instead of more pay, just to not have to have those 3 cheap strikers. But right now, there's not a huge amount of options up front. So I don't know if it's a big deal. And I do foresee myself at some point downgrading Jota soon as well. So you could go for Robertson instead of Jota in this team, and I would possibly try and find a way to do that. It's just which midfielder do you put in instead of Jota? You could put like Cornet or someone like that in, maybe Saka. Obviously Martinelli's not an option now, but I do think that Jota plays at least 2 of the next 3 games in the Premier League, so I kind of like him as an option. But yeah, if you wanted to go for Robertson, you definitely could instead. So this week you get 4 double game week players, albeit 3 are Brighton. So it might not be the most ideal way to set up. Like I said, you could go for De Gea instead of Sanchez if you've got the money. And then if we skip on to game week 26, so you take out Webster for Weghorst, White goes in instead of Morpay as well. And you could swap Fernandez to Son. So instead of having Kane, you'd have Son instead. So I'm just going to put him in. That would then give you 1.6 million to play around with. You could use it this week. You could use it next week, whatever you want to do. And Sanchez would swap to Ramsdale. So you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 double game week players, plus Bowen, plus Cancelo. Now you could switch Bowen to like an Arsenal player this week if you wanted to in game week 26. But they do blank in 27, so you've got to think about when you're using your other chips and stuff like that as well. You're going to have to take all this into account when you do your own wildcard. And then from game week 27, yes, you've got a lot of blank players, but Sanchez has got that game against Villa at home, which isn't too bad. Broja comes in, Webster obviously comes back in as well for White, and Salah comes in. Salah goes out for more pay. And then you've got the double for Weghorst, of course, probably be my captain if I was using this team. And Morpay and Broja have still got pretty good fixtures. And then you've just got to choose. Like, by the way, we'll discuss this when we get to 27, but you could just roll with 10 players. You don't have to take Jota out, but if you wanted to, you could, right? So you could possibly go for Cornet, for example, and have 2 double game week players in Weghorst and Cornet, 4.2 million in the bank to spend how you wish the week after. And I'll just go to game week 28 and that's it. I'm not going to keep going through every single week, but Trent would obviously come back in. You could take Weghorst out and put Salah in, and again, you could just continue to play Morpay and Broja if you want, but it's 4.2 million in the bank. So if you want to switch back to Jota, if you want to upgrade a defender to Robertson, if you want to change one of your forwards, if players have got double game weeks or stuff like that in 28 and 29, you can. So that's kind of what I'd look at for my game week 25 team, but if I was wildcarding this week, I would definitely give it a little bit more thought. So going to be honest, right, the pool of players, midfielders under 6 million is not that great. There's not a huge amount of standout options. Martinelli has kind of screwed things a little bit, obviously, because he got that red card from 2 yellows. And then that means he'll now miss one of the games in 26. So he's actually only playing once in the next 3 games. So he's not even a really great option. Just really quickly, although I didn't see any questions, but I'm sure it's on people's minds. If you've got Martinelli, I feel like you probably just keep him. Yes, he's missing 1 game, but that's only 1 less than you were expecting anyway. And it's probably not worth a transfer, but that is all going to depend on your own team setup. But in most cases, I'd probably keep him, especially if you want him moving forward. Outside of that, there's only really a few players I'd look at. Ramsey at Villa is only 4.7 million. Seems to be playing pretty regularly, fairly attacking, decent price, really good enabler. No double, but doesn't. No double game week yet. But does play in game week 27, does play in game week 30 as well. So it not only enables other players to come into your squad, but also kind of covers you in a few other weeks. So if you're looking to save some money, Ramsey's not a bad option. Otherwise, it's probably Cornet, I think. He's got obviously back-to-back doubles, game week 26, game week 27. Sean Dyche said he should be fine for this week as well. I mean, if you weren't sure about his minutes, you could take a punt on my old friend Dwight McNeil, who seems to play quite regularly. Not really the most attacking, but that is kind of the players you're looking at from a sub £6 million kind of bracket. Like, I'm looking at the list of players like on the FPL site. Like in Bomber, I'm not sure about him just yet. You obviously got Dan James at Leeds, who's just done really well in the last game, but I don't know if I'd want to read too much into that. And realistically, if you're going to go for Leeds, you want to try and get up to Rafinha. Just like if you were going for an Arsenal player, you'd probably want to get up to someone like Saka, because Odegaard's an option, but I just don't think he's a great FPL option at all. Obviously, Salah's only just back for Watford as well, though they have a double game week too. We don't know how he's going to fit in with all the players they got as well. Elise maybe at 5.4 million, but I don't know. I don't think there's a huge standout. So if you can't get to Rafinha or Saka or someone like that, then I may even just go straight to Cornet, although obviously he plays Liverpool this week, so it's not great. And if I needed the money, maybe just go for Ramsey. There are other options there, but not really a huge amount of standouts, to be honest. Alright, so this is more like strategy going forward. I mean, realistically, you probably want a Man United attacker this week, plus maybe one other premium, and then going forward, maybe Salah and Kane is the way to go. That's probably what I'm looking at, to be honest. But essentially, is it better to go for 2 premium players, i.e. Salah and Kane, or just 1 premium player and then a more balanced team, right? I put in the quotation marks there for that. Again, it all depends how you're set up. But when I think about my team right now and the players that I'm looking at, players like Bowen and Saka and Rafinha and maybe Jota, maybe a downgrade from Jota to Cornet for a little bit. There's lots of cheap midfielders there. And then up front, no one wants Ronaldo right now. Maybe someone wants Lukaku soon from game week 28 onwards if he can start scoring goals again. Obviously, the fixtures are good. But you're probably going to... Most people, I would say, are probably going to look to have Broja and Weghorst. So straight away, you've got like Rafinha and Saka and Weghorst and Cornet. Maybe some people have got more pay. Some people have got Broja. That's a lot of cheap players. And then in defence, there's Trent, Cancelo, maybe Robertson. But a lot of people don't have him. They have the likes of maybe... I don't know, Reguilon or Ben White or someone like that as their third player. Maybe a Brighton defender, for example. So it's not even a case of like it gets you a more balanced team. It's, are you going to even spend that money, right? I'm looking to offload Foden soon, for example. Players like Rashford, Sancho, they're just not in people's long-term plans. So I actually think right now you don't hurt your team too much from having 2 premiums. Now, generally, the reason you'd have 2 premiums is if you want to captain more than one, right? Now, for weeks and weeks and weeks this season, it's just been Captain Salah every week. So having that second premium hasn't mattered. And like I said earlier on in the video, my plan originally was to go from Ronaldo straight back to Salah. It's just that things have changed. So I actually think teams look fine at the moment with 2 premium players in there. And I do quite like the idea of having Salah and Kane because Salah will blank in game week 27. And it's nice to have that kind of option like a Kane, like maybe a Son as well. And by the way, maybe Son is an easier way to get like a second premium style player in without spending all the money for Kane. The only thing I would say is even if you had Kane, like I'm planning to, in game week 27 when he plays Leeds away, if you're someone that likes captaining a double game week player, you're going to captain a Burnley player that week. So you're not even going to captain Kane. And then game week 28, Salah is back. Right, so having Kane is not must have, and I got to be honest. Something which I'm going to do before the deadline stream tomorrow is try and work out whether there's a better route for my transfers to get Son instead, and basically spend the extra money elsewhere. I don't think it's going to save me any transfers, so it's probably not worth it. But it is quite a hefty saving from going for Son over Kane. But from game week 28 onwards, Chelsea do have a really good fixture run. And if Lukaku keeps getting minutes, and there's lots of ifs here, if they can finally make it click, which doesn't seem to be happening in the last few game weeks with him, he starts banging in the goals. They have got a really good fixture run, so having Kane would let you do that straight swap. But again, if Salah's playing, most of the time you're just going to captain him. And when there's smaller double game weeks, you're going to probably captain a double game week player anyway. So I don't think it's essential, but I also don't think it's hurting the balance of people's teams. So it's probably fine to keep that spot there now. So I know I did the team selection video earlier, but I just want to kind of talk about my team now. The press conferences have gone and stuff like that. And because we're doing the game week preview on Friday, it seems like a pretty good time to talk about it. So a couple of things have happened, only small minor things really. Gray is definitely ruled out. I don't really need to play him this week. I absolutely don't have to. I could play Josh King instead, which I'm perfectly okay to do. But I'm probably going to use it as an excuse to sell Gray now. I've got to keep Trossard. I don't think he's a great option, by the way. Don't bring him in. Don't bring him in any style. Like, even if you needed a cheap midfielder, again, I'd probably just go for Saka or Rafinha instead because they're probably better long term. But I've got Trossard, so I'm going to keep him, right? I stupidly brought him in. He's still here. Let's see if he actually plays both the games. Obviously, he's just recovered from COVID, but Potter has said that he's available, so he should be fine. So I think... because nothing was... I kind of wanted Pep to rule Foden out, even though he's been fine. I do think Foden's probably going to start, so I'm probably going to keep him. So I think I'm going to do the Fernandez move and get rid of Gray and sell Antonio. Again, I don't think Antonio has to be sold this week, but I've got a route to do it. So I'm probably going to go to Fernandez and then go from Antonio to Broja. And that's probably going to be my move. And like I said just a minute ago when we were talking about wildcards and stuff like that, Broja's got some pretty good fixtures coming up. Like the Everton's fine to me. I'm probably going to have to play him in game week 26. I'm okay with that. Norwich, Villa, Watford, Burnley, Leeds. Like that is a good fixture run. And at that point then, I'm probably looking to wildcard soon anyway, so it won't even matter. Plus he's cheap, so he's a bit of an enabler. So I quite like that. The only thing it's going to stop me doing is having Weghorst in game week 26. I don't know if that should stop me making a transfer right now. Because ultimately I'll be able to do King to Weghorst in game week 27, which then gets me my double game week captain. So that's what I'm probably looking at. If I could go, it's easy to say when you can't do it. If I could go straight to Salah instead of having to take a hit to get Salah. Would I do it? Possibly. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I don't mind that I have to get Fernandez in first, and I will probably switch captaincy to Fernandez. Now, that doesn't disregard anything I said before. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite or anything like that, but I've got 2 free transfers. It's also Man United, and I also love going all in on kind of double game weeks. That's part of the lure for going for Fernandez. Is this the most sensible option? I don't know if it is. It probably is if Ronaldo does end up missing one game. But if Ronaldo plays twice, forget what happens with the outcome. Forget if Fernandez beats Ronaldo or vice versa. If Ronaldo starts both games, this move is probably a little bit of a mistake because I could have just captained Ronaldo anyway. But I do think Fernandez is much more likely to play both games. And I think he's been looking good recently. So it gives me an excuse to go for 3 Man United players. I've got Trossard, so that gives me 4 for this week. And then next week I'll probably take a -8 to get up to 8 double game week players. Maybe I'll even take another hit if I want to get to another one if it helps me long term. So I'm definitely not saying that transfer is locked in, because I feel like I've done nothing but think about my team, and yet I'm still not quite sure if I've kind of thought about everything. I could even just do one move. I could even just do Gray to Rafinha and just roll the transfer. But I don't think it helps me out that much next week, because I still need to then figure out a way to get Salah. And I think it costs me just the same amount of hits no matter what. Because if I go Gray to Rafinha, obviously at this point I haven't sold Antonio, which obviously I'm doing with the Fernandez move. So let's say that's my only move in game week 25 and I just captain Ronaldo, which I would do probably if I didn't bring in Fernandez. Then in game week 26 I need to do one move for, let's count them so I don't forget, one move for Ronaldo to Kane. I need to do Foden for my second move to Salah. And then I can't remember which one it is now. And then I probably need to do Antonio to Weghorst. That's my third move. But the problem is, because I bought in Reguilon, right, and I knew this at the time, and things just kind of changed a little bit, I can't afford that. So that would be for a -4. So I'd have to fund that by either removing Trossard or removing Dawson, and that's going to end up costing me the -8 anyway. So if I use one transfer for Rafinha this week, I'll have 2 next week. So doing 4 transfers cost me 8 points. So it depends, right? This way means I don't get Fernandez in 25, but I could do Dawson down to another double game week defender. Maybe someone like Ben White or something like that. It depends, right? I could decide. I could even do it this week, right? I could get Dallo or Webster and just make 2 transfers this week. But that's the only way to get Rafinha for Gray this week. So that's probably why I'm going to use the excuse and just go straight to Fernandez by selling Antonio. So yeah, that's it. I don't know if you follow along, but basically, I either get Fernandez now and don't have Weghorst for game week 26 and don't have Antonio for game week 25, or I just get Rafinha. I do have Weghorst, but I've still got to spend the exact same amount of hits. So you lose the fixture from Fernandez and you gain it from Weghorst. I think I prefer the Fernandez route, and I'm probably going to captain him as well. So that is my team. That's all your questions answered. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back with a deadline stream tomorrow.